जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे, हरि हरि बोल। So thank you once again, dear devotees, for kindly being present here. Thank you, Dhāmeśvara Mahāprabhu Prabhu, for kindly hosting this particular series on Śrī-Upadeśāmṛtam. I'm very thankful to all of you for kindly being here. And Dhāmeśvara Prabhu said, he said, please excuse me for not shaving. So, I would also like to say, please excuse me, my voice may be a little, I'm having some issues due to cough. So maybe, I have some throat issues. Different devotees, when they go to Vrindavan, they bring back different things. Some devotees bring back, nice feedbacks. Some devotees bring nice clothes. People ask, what did you get from Vrindavan? I got cough and cold from Vrindavan for myself. So, dear devotees, please excuse me if I'm having a little cough. We are continuing our series on Śrī-Upadeśāmṛtam, and this is a detailed study of Śrī-Upadeśāmṛtam of Srila Rupa Goswami. Before we continue, I'd once again like to offer obeisances to Srila Rupa Goswami. Nirmathya bhakti pathodhim mudritam bahuyatnatah upadeshamritam yena tam Shri Rupam upasmahe. We offer worship to Sri Rupa Goswami, by whom the ocean of bhakti was churned and the nectar of instruction, that is Upadeshamritam, was extracted with great effort. So we are discussing the second verse of Śrī-Upadeśāmṛtam, which describes what should be avoided in bhakti. And this is a very good verse because, I am very happy to speak upon this verse, because sometimes, you might have seen in a prison, there are many criminals, and one particular criminal may be a very hardened criminal. Like, he has learnt the entire art of executing a crime. So sometimes what the government does is they select such a criminal and they put him out of prison, and they tell the criminal, you work with us, you tell us how criminals think. So this is what the government does. So similarly, a person who expertly knows what not to do by experience has been selected here to explain what not to do, dear devotees. This is the case with me here. So don't worry, you are in expert hands, because the best criminal has been selected to explain how to not execute a crime. So let's move ahead, dear devotees. And we were in the second instruction of Śrī-Upadeśāmṛtam. Atyaharah prayasascha prajalpo niyamagrahah janasangascha laulyam cha shadbhir bhaktir vinashyati. So bhakti is destroyed by these six, namely atyahara, overeating or overconsumption, that we have already seen. Prayasa, over endeavor for non-devotional gain. Prajalpaha, fruitless talks, which was last time. Cha niyamagraha, and niyamagraha. So niyamagraha is translated as neglecting or forcing rules. This is a basic translation which has to be elaborated upon. Janasanga, associating with worldly non-devotee individuals, and laulyam, fickleness of mind. So today we are discussing niyamagraha. So Dhāmeśvara Prabhu, I need your help from time to time. So Dhāmeśvara Prabhu, can you please tell me, why is niyamagraha broken down in these two ways? Why does niyamagraha mean neglecting as well as forcing rules?
Grammatically, you mean?
Yeah, grammatically.
Okay, it's the A in the middle.
Right.
It could be that niyama and ends with a short a and agraha begins with a short a, which has one meaning, or it could be that it's actually a long a.
Yes. Perfect. Thank
One
you.
of those. So, yeah.
Yes. So actually, the term niyama means rule or vow or prescription. In the Amar Kosh, it says niyamo vratam. Niyam basically refers to a rule or a vow. So this is niyama. This is the meaning of niyama. And as it is given in Amar Kosh. Next is agraha. So agraha means non-acceptance. Means negation. Graha means acceptance. So non-acceptance is known as agraha. And then there is something known as agraha. Agraha is the other extreme, forceful insistence. So agraha is forceful insistence and agraha is non-acceptance. But when niyama is combined with agraha as well as agraha, it ends up as niyamagraha. So both these are niyamagraha. So niyamagraha basically means non-acceptance of a rule or a vow or an essential principle. And it also means forceful insistence of a rule, a vow, or an essential principle. But we have to further elaborate upon niyamagraha. So we will take help of our commentator Shri Radharaman Goswami, who has written a Sanskrit commentary on Śrī-Upadeśāmṛtam. Shri Radharaman Goswami says, niyamagraha prakrite vaishayika niyame agraha. So he says the term niyamagraha first refers to agraha. Agraha means showing extreme eagerness for prakrite vaishayika niyame, for mundane rules. So if a particular devotee is on the path of bhakti, but they are showing extreme eagerness for mundane rules, which are not so much related to bhakti, and that becomes agraha, extreme eagerness. Then he says yadva, else. Yasya kasyapi bhakti anga niyamasya agrahanam sadhakasya ragabhavat. Else it refers to agraha, non-acceptance of specific rules of bhakti. Why? Due to sadhakasya ragabhava, due to lack of interest of the practitioner. Then he further elaborates and says, vidhinapi tad agrahe tal lobhadityartha. This means that even though the rule is prescribed, but still such a person is eager to not accept it. And this is not out of weakness, but out of sheer eagerness in such non-acceptance. So somebody becomes eager to not accept rules. Sometimes a person is not able to accept rules because they are genuinely weak in their body. Like Sri Haridas Thakur, he had a vow of chanting a specific number of rounds. But it is described in the biographies of Sri Chaitanya Mahāprabhu that when Sri Haridas Thakur had attained a very ripe age, he was not able to continue that because of his old age. So not out of weakness of body or something like that he's saying here, but somebody shows sheer eagerness in non-acceptance. I don't want to accept it because I don't feel it is relevant for me. Even though Shastra says it is relevant, still a person feels it is not relevant for them. So that becomes agraha. So these are two meanings of niyamagraha as explained by our learned commentator Shri Radharaman Goswami. Now, Srila Bhaktivinode Thakur is our second commentator. Srila Bhaktivinode Thakur says, niyamagraha uccha adhikar prapti samaye nimna adhikar gata niyama agraha. So what does niyamagraha mean? It's of two types. First, to have agraha, eagerness, for a rule of lower importance, nimna adhikar, even after higher eligibility has been attained. Even after somebody has attained a higher eligibility, somebody remains fixed on rules of lower importance. That is niyamagraha. And second, to display agraha. He says, evam bhakti poshaka niyamera agraha. He says to display agraha, non-acceptance of rules that nourish one's bhakti. So, ei dui prakar. These are the two types of niyamagraha. So, on similar lines of Shri Radharaman Goswami. So, Srila Bhaktisiddhant Saraswati Thakura gives a very elaborate meaning of niyamagraha. And in this elaborate explanation, he has also included an English term in the original Bengali. So I am reading it out. मुक्ति प्राप्तिर उद्देश्य ज्ञान शास्त्रेर नियमावली ग्रहणे आग्रह इहामुत्र सुख भोग प्राप्तिर उद्देश्य प्रयोग शास्त्रेर नियमेर प्रति आसक्ति तत्कालिक सुख प्राप्तिर उद्देश्य यूटिलिटेरियन, दिस इज द इंग्लिश टर्म, यूटिलिटेरियन दिगे निज अवस्था उचित विधिर प्रति मर्यादा स्थापनी नियमाग्रह भक्ति लाभेर नियमादिते उदासीन यथेच्छाचारके अनुराग मार्ग वलिया अपनार ग्रहण योग्य अवस्था के बहु मानन करें. Sorry, I am not a native Bengali. I am from the opposite part of India, Maharashtra. But still, my pronunciation of Bangla is a Sanskritized pronunciation. So kindly bear with me. So what he means is niyamagraha is to have eagerness, agraha, for accepting the rules prescribed in literature pertaining to impersonal Brahman for attaining impersonal liberation. So to show eagerness for impersonal liberation and to accept the rules in the respective shastras related to impersonal Brahman, this is niyamagraha. Second is to have attachment, again agraha, for rules given in ritualistic Vedic literature for attaining happiness in this world and the next. So the first is for the jnani, for the impersonalist. The second is for the fruitive karma kandi who is attached to the words of the fruitive words of the Vedas. And third is for the non-devotee. So for every one of these six in this verse, he is doing the same thing. Point 1, he speaks about the jnani. Point 2, he speaks about the karma kandi. And point 3, he speaks about the anyabhilashi, the non-devotee. The third, he says to behave like a utilitarian. So what is utilitarianism? Basically, it's a philosophy which, says that you should try to be as happy as possible in this world, not only on an individual level, but also on a social level. And try to ensure social happiness, as much happiness as possible, and avoid as much distress as possible. So do whatever is required to ensure this. This is utilitarianism. So in this utilitarianism, there is absolutely, no attention given to the fact that death is staring down our eyes at every moment. And utilitarianism cannot do anything to stop that. So basically, utilitarianism means for the time being, live in happiness. Gridam kritva gritam pivet, yavat jivet sukham jivet. As long as you live happily. So utilitarianism. So to behave like a utilitarian and establish social rules in this world according to the respective situations of various people in order to attain immediate happiness. And basically no conception of happiness in the next life, immediate happiness. That is utilitarianism. So this is also niyamagraha. And he says niyamagraha also means to disregard, agraha, those rules that are favorable to one's bhakti. And not only that, to falsely call one's whimsical behavior as the path of anurag, spontaneous attachment, and then to consider such a fallen condition as very great. So sometimes you may see there are some individuals who are wearing the dress of a devotee, but they're not following any rules and regulations. And when you ask them, why are you doing so? They will say, you don't understand, this is spontaneous devotional service. And you have to get beyond these rules and regulations. Stop thinking in terms of rules and regulations. So they have gone to the other extreme. And then they consider their fallen condition as very great. He further continues to push this point. He quotes a verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Shruti smriti puranadi pancharatra vidhim vina aikantiki harer bhaktir utpatayaiva kalpate. So aikantiki harer bhaktir. No matter how one-pointed one's Hari Bhakti appears, but if it is devoid, vina, of the rules within, which rules of Shruti, Vedas, Smriti, Purana, etc., and Pancharatra literature, then such aikantiki bhakti, such so-called one-pointed Hari Bhakti, utpata yaiva kalpate, simply leads to utpat, great disturbance, not only on the individual level but also on the social level. So, Srila Bhaktisiddhant Saraswati Thakura says that one should follow the rules given in Shruti, Smriti, Puran, which are favorable to bhakti. Not accepting them is agraha, and not accepting them, and on top of that, shamelessly saying that one need not accept these rules and to proclaim oneself as some sort of a great incarnation. This is the pinnacle of niyamagraha that someone can display. So this is Srila Bhaktisiddhant Saraswati Thakur's elaborate commentary. It's very nice and helpful for understanding what are both aspects of niyamagraha. So now, continuing ahead, before we understand what is niyamagraha and niyamagraha, we should first understand a concept. This concept is called as adhikar. So we should know what is the concept of adhikar. The term adhikar means eligibility. So each and every individual in the world is eligible for something. So they are known as adhikaris. Some people are eligible for the path of karma yoga. Some people are eligible for the path of Jnana Yoga. So that is what is their adhikar, their eligibility, according to their previous samskaras. Now, Shri Krishna explains this in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Yogastrayo maya prokta nranam shreyo vidhitsaya jnanam karma cha bhaktischa nopayonyosti kutrachit. So he says to Uddhav, I have presented 3 paths of yoga with the intention of bestowing the highest good upon humans. What are these 3 paths? Jnanam. First, the path of impersonal knowledge. Second is karma, the path of prescribed activities, karma yoga. And third is bhakti, the path of devotion, bhakti yoga, devotional service. Na upayo anyosti kutrachit. Besides these 3, there is absolutely no other means of elevation for the human being. So someone may try to elevate themselves spiritually, but at the end of the day, these are the 3 ways through which one can progress. Basically, most people in the world are materialists who don't want to progress spiritually at all. There are many materialists in the world, and their adhikar is simply, limited to being a materialist. Now, out of many materialists, one person becomes a karma yogi. What does karma yogi mean? Whatever duties or karma are prescribed for them according to varna and ashram, according to shastra, they surrender all of that and the results to the Supreme Lord. So that person becomes a karma yogi. Ishwar arpanam. So to offer all of one's activities to Ishwar, to the Supreme Lord. But all those activities should be the ones which are prescribed in Shastra. So then such a person becomes karma yogi. This concept was misunderstood in modern India. And then it was further twisted, and then people started saying work is worship. So karma yoga is not work is worship. Karma yoga means work according to Shastra becomes your worship by offering to the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, if we simply say work is worship, then the thief who is stealing will also say my work is worship. Then the politician who is swindling billions of dollars will also say, my work is worship. So not simply work, but work according to Shastra and work that is offered to the Supreme Lord. That is worship. That is Karma Yoga. So if one person becomes eligible, adhikari for Karma Yoga, then there is another person who has no interest in such karma, becomes detached. Such person is known as an adhikari for Jnana Yoga, Jnana Yogi. And then there is a person who is eligible for Bhakti Yoga, devotional service unto the Supreme Lord. Such a person becomes known as Bhakti Yogi. So Krishna in the Srimad Bhagavatam tells what is the adhikar, what is the eligibility for karma and gyan. And why am I specifying eligibility? Because later Krishna will say that to remain on one's level of eligibility is piety, and to fall down is impiety. So first we should understand that not all people are meant to be given the same medicine. What is medicine for one man may turn out to be poison for another. So if there is a karma yogi and we prescribe jnana yoga to them, it may not work for them. So different people have different adhikars. So it's not one size fits all. So what is the adhikar for karma and jnana yogis? So Shri Krishna tells Uddhav, Nirvinnanam jnana yogo न्यासिनामिह कर्मसु तेष्व निर्विण्ण चित्तानाम कर्मयोगस्तु कामिनाम. He says the path of Jnana Yoga is meant for nyasinam, for those sannyasis who are nirvinnanam, who are nauseated with fruitive karma, who are fed up of fruitive karma, and who have thus given up such karma. And the path of Karma Yoga, however, is for anirvinna chittanam, for those who hanker, kaminam, after the fulfillment of their desires and who are not disenchanted with such fruitive karma. So if somebody has material desires, somebody is not nauseated or fed up with materialistic activities, for them there is Karma Yoga. Somebody who's completely fed up, for them there is Jnana Yoga. So then who is, Bhakti Yoga is meant for whom? So Bhakti Yoga is the middle path. So Shri Krishna says, Yadrichaya mat kathadau jata shraddhastu yah puman na nirbedno na atisakto bhakti yogosya siddhidah. Often when I show this verse, many devotees become a little surprised that Krishna doesn't prescribe extreme renunciation for the devotee. So Krishna says, due to good fortune, yadrichaya. So for the devotee, he says they have to have good fortune. Only a very fortunate person becomes a devotee. If a person becomes devoutly faithful, mat kathadav, in the descriptions of my name, form, qualities, etc. And if such a person is na nirvenno na atisakto, neither too disgusted by nor too attached to fruitive karma, then the process of Bhakti Yoga is meant for such an individual. And it is Bhakti Yoga that awards him all perfection. Siddhidah. The Bhakti Yoga awards him all perfection. So Bhakti Yoga is the middle path, neither for those who are too attached to karma, nor too detached from karma. Because Bhakti Yoga requires us to perform some essential karma. Some essential karma is required for Bhakti Yoga. So therefore, one cannot become completely detached from all karma. Let me give an example. For example, fire sacrifice for a Brahmana. A Brahmana has to perform yajna. Actually, the entire 4 Vedas are centered around yajna. And a Brahmana has to perform fire sacrifice. Now, when a person becomes a devotee, he performs the same fire sacrifice, but for the satisfaction of Vishnu. So he doesn't give up that karma because he is not disgusted by it. He knows that the fire sacrifice is to be done for Vishnu. So he is neither very attached to it because he doesn't want any fruitive results from it, nor has he become completely detached from it. Such a person is eligible for Bhakti Yoga. So the karma yogi, his adhikar is that he's very much attached to fruitive karma. The Jnana yogi, his adhikar is that he is completely detached from fruitive karma. And the middle path is of the bhakti yogi. The adhikar is neither too attached nor too detached. So we have to understand this is the respective adhikar of spiritualists, all those who are talking on the path of spirituality. Now, we should not try to force rules upon such individuals who are situated on their adhikar. We should not force rules in such a way that they will fall from their adhikar. In the Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna was dejected, in the second chapter, Krishna first starts speaking Sankhya Yoga, basically Gyan Yoga. And he says, you are not the body, you are the soul. These people, they are already dead. Don't see them as your relatives. And then he sees that Arjun is not really appearing very convinced. So midway in the second chapter, Krishna changes tracks to Karma Yoga. And then Krishna explains to Arjun from a different point of view. You should perform this as your duty as a Kshatriya. There is no greater glory. No, Hato va prapsyasi. If you're killed in battle, you will attain Swarga, heavenly planets. And if you win, you will enjoy the earth. So therefore, considering your duty as a Kshatriya, Arjun, fight. So Krishna also is not giving an instruction of Jnana Yoga to Arjun. Because Krishna understands at that point of time, Arjun was so overcome by lamentation that he was not willing to hear instructions on Jnana Yoga. So Arjuna could appreciate instructions on Karma Yoga. So therefore, then Arjun also asks him, why are you giving me mixed instructions? Then Krishna clarifies, actually, in the instructions are not mixed, they are for different candidates. They're for different adhikaris. So similarly, we should understand that Shastra is written for different adhikaris who have different eligibilities. And we should not try to paint all of them in a single color. So different people are eligible for different yogas, especially spiritualists, they are eligible for different paths of yoga. So we may desire that everybody should come to Bhakti Yoga. Definitely. It's a good desire that everybody should come to the path of Bhakti Yoga. And we should try once. Definitely we should try telling everybody once that please accept the path of Bhakti. We should give them a book. We should tell them about Krishna. We should tell them about the path of Bhakti Yoga. But if they are insistent upon their particular path of spiritual life, then we should not do agraha. We should not show over enthusiasm for forcing a process upon them. Krishna has said in the Bhagavad Gita, na buddhi bhedam janayet. Don't try to split the intelligence of somebody who is attached to karma. So if somebody is attached to karma yoga or karma, don't try to split their intelligence and deviate them from their adhikar. So they have an adhikar, they will gradually come. We did our duty by trying to tell them what is Bhakti Yoga, who is Krishna. And if they are still not willing to listen, then let them follow their particular adhikar. So we have to understand this is the concept of adhikar. And if we try to force rules of one process upon an adhikari of another process, then it will lead to disturbance. It will definitely 100% lead to utpat, disturbance in the society. In the history of the world, many religions were propagated simply by utpat. Utpat means by creating disturbance. Actually, religion is supposed to be propagated by the means of convincing logic. It should be given to those who are adhikaris. But in the past, if you see the history of the world, actually previously in many parts of the world, worship of multiple deities was present. And if you see in Southern America, people used to worship sun god, Surya. If you see in ancient Iran, people used to worship fire, Agni. And if you see the Zoroastrians, basically, they were worshippers of multiple Vedic deities. But then there came various religions which said, forget about your adhikar. We will force our religion upon you. And because people were not easily willing to accept, so it had to be done by utpat. Utpat means by causing disturbance in the society. So many people were killed in religious conquests. Many people were killed in crusades. So in this way, when we try to impose rules of one particular process upon a person who is not willing to be follow it, then it causes an utpat in the society sooner or later. And we should avoid that by all means. Shri Krishna, therefore, very clearly tells Arjuna, tells Uddhava, स्वे स्वेधिकारे या निष्ठा सगुणः परिकीर्तितः विपर्ययस्तु दोषः स्यादुभयोरेष निश्चयः. So steadiness in one's own position is declared to be actual piety, whereas deviation from one's position is considered impiety. In this way, piety and impiety are ascertained. Now, dear devotees, many of us, those of us who are eligible for Bhakti Yoga, we should also understand that even within Bhakti Yoga, there are sub-gradations of adhikar. There is Kanishtha Adhikari, there is Madhyam Adhikari, there is Uttam Adhikari. So even in Bhakti, there are sub-gradations of adhikar. Now, if there is a Kanishtha Adhikari, somebody who is a very new devotee, who has very soft faith, now to expect him to carry out the functions of an Uttam Adhikari means we are performing niyamagraha. We are forcing a rule upon them which is not in their adhikar. So we should not perform niyamagraha in this way. Somebody is a Kanishtha Adhikari, they will behave like a Kanishtha Adhikari. Don't expect too much. And somebody is an Uttam Adhikari, or somebody is a Madhyam Adhikari, and they stop following their rules, agraha, then they will fall down. So both types of niyamagraha should be avoided by all thoughtful and intelligent devotees. Now, Dhāmeśvara Prabhu, can you please tell me what is the ultimate aim of all niyamas, all rules and regulations in bhakti?
To develop Krishna consciousness.
Okay.
To remember Krishna and never forget him.
Oh, perfect. That is the answer I'm looking for. So, the ultimate aim of all niyamas, all rules and regulations in Krishna Bhakti is one and only one. So, Sri Rupa Goswami says, Smartavyah satatam Vishnur Vismartavyo na jatuchit Sarve vidhi nishedhasyur etayureva kinkarah. Vishnu should be first. Smartavyah satatam, always be remembered. Always be remembered how? Grudgingly or favorably? So I have added something to the translation. I have added there favorably. So this favorably is not there in the original verse. I have added it there. Why have I added favorably there? Because this favorably is carrying forward from the Anyabhilashita Shunyam verse. Anukulyena Krishnanushilanam. So you have whatever devotional service you perform has to be anukul, favorably. So Vishnu should always be remembered favorably, and Vishnu should never be forgotten. Sarve vidhi nishedha, all other rules and regulations are servants of these two essential principles. So one is a rule, always remember Krishna. One is a regulation, never forget Krishna. All other rules and regulations are servants of this one rule and this one regulation. This is what Srila Rupa Goswami says. Now, whatever is favorable for such remembrance should be performed, and whatever goes against such favorable remembrance should not be performed. This is the criteria that Srila Rupa Goswami has given in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Freedom has been given for us to decide what is favorable for our remembrance of Bhagavan, what is not favorable for our remembrance of Bhagavan. So we should understand that this is the ultimate rule, and all other rules have to bend around this particular rule. So accept only what is favorable. Actually, Sri Sanatana Goswami has said that in the 6 limbs of sharanagathi, 6 limbs of surrender, anukulyasya sankalpaha pratikulyasya varjanam. So what is favorable for one's bhakti is to be accepted, and what is unfavorable should be avoided. So very important point. accept only what is favorable for your bhajan, according to Shastra, not whimsically, according to Shastra, according to directions of Guru. Accept what is favorable. Not that, some people start saying, adhikasya adhikam phalam. Just accept more and more and more, do more and more and more of this particular limb of bhakti, because adhikasya adhikam phalam, greater input leads to greater result. Dhāmeśvara Prabhu, which limb of bhakti do you personally like? Please tell me.
Kirtan.
So Prabhu, approximately how many hours of kirtan do you try to do every week?
2. Not very
Prabhu,
much.
why not 4?
4 would probably be good, but I think your point is that if you do more and more and more, it goes beyond your capacity and creates some strain.
Prabhu, but adhikasya adhikam phalam. If you do more kirtan, you'll get more result. Anyways, Kali Yuga means you should perform kirtan. So Prabhu, let's change 2 hours to 16 hours per week. How does that sound?
I'm not ready for that.
Prabhu, kirtan is the Yuga Dharma. How can you say no? So
it's true, but I'll develop this taste for it because I'm
Wonderful.
forcing it so much.
Wonderful. So I wanted to highlight this point. Hari Nam is supposed to be a medicine. In a future verse in Upadeshamritam, Rupa Goswami will compare our condition to a diseased condition, and he will compare the name of Krishna to sweet candy, which is a medicine. Actually, sweet candy is also medicine, sugar candy is also medicine, and it is also an eatable. But in the diseased condition, one can accept tiny amounts of medicine. So not accepting medicine is also niyamagraha, and overdosing on the medicine, thinking that it will immediately cure me, is also niyamagraha. Both things are niyamagraha here. So adhikasya adhikam phalam. It's true that greater input leads to a greater result. But in bhakti, there is one condition, that anukulyena. It should maintain our favorability in seva. As soon as anukulyena krishnanushilanam, as soon as the favorability is lost, as soon as I stop becoming favorable towards my seva, I should understand that my main condition of bhakti is getting harmed. And at that point of time, I should draw a limit that beyond this, at this point of time, it is not possible for me. This is where my adhikar is at this point of time. To be situated in one's adhikar is piety. To try to artificially override it is impiety. We have already seen that verse. Now, sometimes devotees, they try to force some external rules upon other devotees which are not really related to bhakti. Sometimes devotees give rules such as vairagya. Vairagya means you can't be a good devotee if you are not, detached in this and this way. You can't be a good devotee if you are not, a proper renunciant. So like this, they will give some artificial conditions. But these rules are not applicable to bhakti. Little bit of vairagya is needed. Little renunciation is needed in the beginning. Srila Rupa Goswami says, Jnana vairagya yor bhakti praveshaya upayogita. Ishat prathamameveti na angatvam uchitam tayoh. Renunciation is not one of the 64 limbs of bhakti. Definitely not. Why? Srila Rupa Goswami says the cultivation of knowledge of impersonal Brahman, Jnana, and the cultivation of vairagya, renunciation, is required to a very small degree only in the beginning stage of one's bhakti. Later, what will happen? Later, bhakti will lead to natural renunciation. You don't need to separately cultivate renunciation. Little renunciation is required to enter into bhakti. Because Krishna has said neither to attach nor to detach. So little bit of detachment is required in the beginning stage. But if you separately start cultivating renunciation and then you propagate it as bhakti, Basically, you are performing niyamagraha. You are introducing a rule which was not supposed to be there, which is not prescribed as the 64, one of the 64 limbs of bhakti. So therefore, separate cultivation of these can never be considered as a limb of bhakti. So many times devotees introduce some very strange rules, some very strange type of austerities when they are performing bhakti. So I will try to give one example from the pastimes of Srila Prabhupada. So Dhāmeśvara Prabhu, you kindly read, this is from Srila Prabhupada Lilamritam, Prabhuji. Please read.
Guru Das, I always went on every morning walk, but one time I was sitting in the temple when I suddenly saw Prabhupada and the devotees going toward the beach. I immediately ran out of the temple to join them without even taking time to get my shoes. But there were barnacles and rocks leading down the beach. When Prabhupada saw me coming, lifting my feet up high, painfully hobbling down the rough road, he looked over and said, "Oh, your feet are hurting? Why aren't you wearing shoes?" And I said, "Prabhupada, when I'm with you, I don't feel any pain." Prabhupada stopped and said, "Then why don't you cut your throat?" Everyone laughed, and I laughed also. He said, "There's enough tapasya, austerity. Why create your own?"
Yes. So there is enough tapasya already in the Hare Krishna movement. There is Ekadashi, there is Ekadashi means fasting once in a fortnight, compulsory fasting is there. And then you have to no meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling. So very little, material enjoyment has been reduced to a minimum already. So on top of that, some people introduce further austerities, which is not given in Shastra. Srila Prabhupada disliked that very much. This is one example. Not only one example, Srila Prabhupada also very clearly stated this in another letter that he wrote to a disciple of his. So this letter I am quoting. Prabhu, please read.
I do not know why these inventions are going on. Is that our only business, to invent something new program? We have already got our Vaishnava standard. That is sufficient for Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya. It was sufficient for Lord Chaitanya, 6 Gosvamis, for Bhaktivinode Thakur, for my Guru Maharaj, Bhaktisiddhant Saraswati, for me, for all big saints and acharyas in our line. Why it shall be inadequate for my disciples, so they must manufacture something? That is not possible. Who has introduced these things, that women cannot have chanting japa in the temple? They cannot perform the arati and so many things. If they become agitated, then let the brahmacharis go to the forest. I have never introduced these things. The brahmacharis cannot remain in the presence of women in the temple, then they must go to the forest, not remaining in New York City, because in New York City there are so many women, so how can they avoid seeing? Best thing is to go to the forest for not seeing any women. If they become so easily agitated, but then no one will either see them or how our preaching work will go on.
Yeah. So in this way, Srila Prabhupada many times asked devotees to avoid niyamagraha, because in the situation that they are in and in the adhikar that they are in, they have to progress from that particular adhikar. So sometimes devotees used to introduce some artificial rules. One rule basically, when Srila Prabhupada opened the temple, some brahmacharis complained that there are ladies in the temple and we become agitated, we don't like to see. So Srila Prabhupada's disciple, when Vaishnavi, she wrote to Srila Prabhupada about this. And then Srila Prabhupada said, we already have all our rules given by the acharyas. Why are we introducing some new rules? And this was Srila Prabhupada's reply, that one should not introduce further rules than what are already given in the Shastra. Sometimes what people do is, for bhakti, limbs of bhakti, people take rules from Shastras which are outside of bhakti. Like, for example, I heard one devotee, many years ago, there was one devotee who came to me and said that, your japa is very good, but it should be performed with asan siddhi. Asan siddhi means you should perform all your 16 rounds sitting in one place. So if you can do asan siddhi, then you will immediately attain perfection in your japa. So I said, but there is no such thing given in the Shastra. In Hari Bhakti Vilas, at least, there is no such thing given that I have read. So why are you asking me to follow this rule. You can say it's a recommendation. We should call it a recommendation. Recommendations are welcome. But when we turn them into rules, that is when the problem begins. That is when, strange principles are introduced, principles which have not been given by our previous acharyas. And when you start forcing them upon others, it becomes agraha, and that is what is known as niyamagraha. Actually, excess of anything ultimately will lead to unfavorability. There's a very nice subhashit in this regard. Atidanat balirbadho yatimanat suyodhanah atilaulyat ravanascha atisarvatra varjayet. Atidanat balirbadho. Due to excess charity, Bali Maharaj got bound up. He was humiliated actually. Atimanat suyodhanah. Due to excess pride, Duryodhan was destroyed. Ati laulyat ravanascha, due to excess greed, Ravan met his end. Therefore, ati sarvatra varjayet, excesses should be carefully avoided. We should ensure one thing, dear devotees, that if we are dedicated, some devotees are dedicated to one limb of bhakti. Some devotees love Harinam. So they perform mainly Harinam. Their primary service is Harinam. Some devotees are dedicated to Srimad Bhagavatam. So they chant their 16 rounds and then rest of the day they dedicate to Srimad Bhagavatam. My Guru Maharaj, those devotees who used to stay with him in the Brahmachari ashram, so they told that, we would be doing other sevas, some devotees would be cooking, some devotees would be like chanting their extra rounds. But for my Guru Maharaj, I used to say, when he would chant his rounds, and after that, for 8 to 10 hours, he would sit in one place and read Srimad Bhagavatam. So this was his limb of bhajan, which he liked to execute. So different devotees like to execute different limbs of bhajan. So we should ensure that we should not try to speak in a way that will cause harm to another person's limbs of bhajan. We should not try to enforce limbs of bhajan upon others in such a way that their natural practice of bhajan prescribed by their gurujanas will be harmed. If somebody's gurujana has told them that they should chant Harinam as much as possible, so that is their limb of bhajan prescribed by their guru, they should do that. Somebody's guru has told them you should read Srimad Bhagavatam as much as possible, so that is the limb of bhajan prescribed by their guru. So it is between the guru and the disciple. How many rounds should a devotee chant? It is decided between the guru and the disciple. We can give recommendations only when asked. We can give recommendations to individuals. It is better to chant more. Srila Prabhupada used to recommend chanting more. But if we make it a rule, and if we say, unless you chant X number of rounds extra, you cannot perfect your life, then what we are doing is we are performing niyamagraha. And not only is it niyamagraha, it is also one of the 10 offenses in chanting Harinam. One of the 10 offenses is Harinamni Kalpanam, to add an imaginary rule in the chanting of Harinam, a rule which is not mentioned in Shastra. So actually, everything, including the quantity to be chanted, is decided between the bona fide guru and the disciple. If the acharyas wanted, they could have given a fixed number, but the acharyas did not give a fixed number. The acharyas gave freedom to the guru and disciple. The guru can decide according to the adhikar of the disciple, how much should the disciple chant. So otherwise the acharyas could have given one number for everybody, but the acharyas did not do that. Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami could have done that. They did not do that, because gurus have to decide individually how much should a disciple chant, how many hours should they study. So tailor-made solution should be there for every disciple, not one size fits all. So this one size fits all is industrial revolution culture, and tailor-made culture is the previous culture, traditional culture. So dear devotees, even regarding mantra japa, our acharyas kept it very flexible. See what Sanatana Goswami says in Hari Bhakti Vilas. Shanai shanai suvispashtam nadrutam na vilambitam Nanyunam na adhikam vapi japam kuryat dine dine. Shri Sanatana Goswami says, Dine dine, daily, one should perform japa of one's prescribed mantra. Shanaiha, shanaiha, in a slow, suvispashtam, clearly pronounced manner. Na dhrutam, the speed of pronunciation should neither be too fast, na vilambitam, nor too slow. Then, na nyunam, na adhikam vapi, one should neither chant too less of a quantity nor too much. Now, here was a perfect chance for Sri Sanatana Goswami to define what is too less and too much. He could have given a number there, but he did not give a number. As I have said many times, Vedic culture means flexibility. Vedic culture means not that one yardstick will be used to measure everyone. So Vedic culture is this culture of flexibility. The Guru has the flexibility to tell the disciple how much they should chant. And other devotees can recommend, you can try chanting more, but compulsions should not be made. Similarly, with other angas of bhakti, other limbs of bhakti, some devotees love reading Shastra. So they may tell other devotees, oh, unless you read this Shastra at least this many number of times, you will never be able to attain perfection. So once again, they are performing niyamagraha. Once again, they are over enforcing rules which are not mentioned in the Shastra. So dear devotees, we should understand this thing, that our acharyas have kept flexibility in this regard. Other sadhus may glorify individual limbs of bhakti. We respect that. But it should be taken as a recommendation, not as a compulsion. Because as soon as we take it as a compulsion, then our favorability is lost. It becomes a chore, chore. It becomes a chore to be completed. Then one's chanting becomes like, rail gadi. Rail gadi means like a train. It has to reach its station at a particular time. So one time, I remember there was a devotee who, long back in 2003 or 4, I was in the youth forum. So there was a devotee who asked me how many rounds I chant. So usually I was hesitant in revealing. I was told by my senior devotee, never specify your rounds. So I said, Prabhu, I'm hesitant, but I chant what Prabhupada has recommended. So basically, I wanted to say that I was doing 16. So then he said, but you can chant 64 rounds in 2 hours. So I said, how is it possible? Can chant 64 rounds in 2 hours? He said, you have to chant very fast. And, sometimes you can also chant in your mind. So I told him, can you show me how do you chant 64 rounds in 2 hours? Then he started showing me. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, wait. What happened? I am not able to hear you. So this speed of chanting is definitely not recommended in Shastra. Sometimes I have heard devotees recommend chant very fast so you can complete your 64 rounds. But Shastra says the opposite. Na dhrutam na vilambitam. One time I saw another devotee. He, on YouTube, you have Srila Prabhupada's chanting. So every day he chants with Srila Prabhupada's chanting. Very nice. So one time I saw this devotee, when the twice speed, 2x speed was introduced. So he put Srila Prabhupada's chanting in 2x speed. And he was Srila Prabhupada's japa in twice the speed. So I didn't say anything to him. But in my mind, I thought that it's good that YouTube doesn't have 10x speed, because some individuals will put it on 10x also. And the natural speed that Srila Prabhupada used to chant, if we have heard, all of us have heard, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. This is the natural speed at which Srila Prabhupada would chant. And then some individuals are not happy with that speed, so double X, twice the speed. So that is what some individuals try to do. So this is not recommended in Shastra. Dear devotees, let's not try to introduce rules that are not in Shastra. Because introducing rules which are not in Shastra is Harinamni Kalpanam. To imagine a rule regarding Harinam, which is not given in Shastra. To basically say that you cannot, see, for other mantras, there are rules prescribed. What rules are prescribed? You should, for Gayatri mantra, you should sit in one place. You should basically not speak it out loudly. You should chant silently. So these are recommended. You should face a particular direction. These are recommendations for Gayatri mantra. And then you take the same recommendations and paste it on Hare Krishna Mahamantra. An aparadh occurs. Dhāmeśvara Prabhu, which aparadh occurs?
Harinamni Kalpanam.
All right, that is one aparadh. Very good. Another aparadh also occurs.
Gurvagya.
Maybe, but there is another specific aparadh that I am referring to. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra as similar to one of the ritualistic activities given in the Vedas, and thus to apply the rules of other ritualistic activities of the Vedas on the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So this is another aparadh which slowly starts entering into one's japa. So these are aparadhs which are not the major aparadhs. The major aparadh is the first one. Satam nindanam nah paramam aparadham. The most important, the most critical aparadh is to insult the devotees. Other aparadhs are minor in comparison to that, but these minor aparadhs also pile up over time and then they hinder our progress in bhakti. This was one meaning of niyamagraha. Another meaning of niyamagraha is, why accept any rules at all? Bhakti means new age bhakti. That is, bhakti in my way. I am a devotee in my way, Dhāmeśvara Prabhu. Don't try to judge me. I am following my own path. It's my own journey, Prabhu. I am on my own personal journey. Why are you trying to dictate to me what I should do and what I should not do? So, Prabhu, please don't judge me. I will follow according to, what inspires me in bhakti. So this is not how bhakti is supposed to be done. Bhakti is supposed to be done according to what Shastra says. If Shastra says something, it should be done. Initially, it may not appear very tasteful to us, but we should do gradually. It will start becoming tasteful. So we should do what Shastra says, what Guru says. If we don't do that, then it becomes niyamagraha, not accepting rules. Srila Rupa Goswami says that this is a major fault in bhakti. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he says, An anushthanato dosho bhaktyanganam prajayate. A great fault occurs on not executing the required limbs of bhakti. Great fault. So there are 64 limbs of bhakti given in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Out of these 64, 5 are very prominent. Sadhu Sangha, associating with sadhus. Nama Kirtan, loud Sankirtan of Krishna's Naam. Bhagavat Shravan, discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Mathura Vas, staying mentally as well as physically sometimes in the holy places such as Mathura Vrindavan. And Shri Murtira Sevan. And for Grihasthas especially, deity worship. So these 5 are very potent and should be performed daily, if possible daily. Now there are other limbs also which are there and which should be performed occasionally. So one limb is accepting a garland of Bhagavan. So whenever a garland of Bhagavan, comes in front of us, we should honor the garland of Sri Bhagavan. So these are other limbs. One should not neglect these limbs. Because let's take the first few initial limbs of bhakti. Guru Padashrayas Tasmad Krishna Diksha Shikshanam Vishrambhena Guru Seva Sadhu Vartmanu Vartanam. Taking shelter of a Vaishnava Guru, first limb. Some people, they discount this limb itself. What is the need of taking shelter of a Guru? Hari Nam will purify everybody. Arey Baba, you should take shelter of a Guru. Oh no, I will read everything from the books. Arey Baba, there is a limb coming up. Vishrambhena Guru Seva, to serve the Guru in person with confidence. How will you carry that out with the books? So then they make up something in their mind. I will serve the books of the Guru. I will serve the instruction of the Guru. So in serving instructions is good, but we have to take shelter of a Guru and stay in the presence of the Guru. The Guru corrects the disciple when it is needed. Like we saw the example from Srila Prabhupada Lilamritama. But one of the disciples of Srila Prabhupada was not wearing shoes, and Srila Prabhupada corrected him. Personal guidance and correction is a living process. It requires a guru. There are some rules in bhakti which should be accepted. Discounting these rules is also niyamagraha. So to accept initiation, and not only initiation, shikshanam, one should also get some shiksha in bhajan. Sometimes devotees just take initiation and then after that they think, well, that's it. Now this is the pinnacle of my spiritual life. I've attained it. So now I am certainly going back home, back to Godhead. So it's not that. Shikshanam. One should also have shiksha. One should also have, one should have training in bhajan from one's guru. So this is Krishna Dikshadi Shikshanam. Vishrambhena Guru Seva, serving the Guru personally with confidence. Some people always stay far away from the Guru. You're supposed to approach the Guru and inquire with confidence. And Sadhu Vartmanu Vartanam, to follow in the footsteps of the previous Sadhu. Some people neglect this. Why do I need previous Sadhus? I have my Guru and my Guru is the best Guru. Amar Guru Jagat Guru. My Guru is Jagat Guru. Why do I need previous Sadhus? Because many things are learned from the previous sadhus. There are so many limbs, so many rules which are there given in the Shastra, Bhakti Shastras. So whatever rules and whatever limbs are mentioned in the Bhakti Shastras, those limbs should be very carefully followed and never neglected. Dear devotees, these are two types of niyamagraha. Niyamagraha, overdoing the rules and regulations, niyamagraha, absolutely not accepting rules and regulations and limbs of bhakti. So once a person understands these two types of niyamagraha, then they will be careful. I will once again summarize. Different individuals are eligible for different adhikars. Some are eligible for karma yoga. Some are for jnana yoga. Some are for bhakti yoga. We should tell everybody about bhakti yoga once. We should tell them about Krishna. We should tell them about Bhagavan, about bhakti. We should try to convince them. But if they are not convinced even after telling them, then they are on a different adhikar. Then we should not disturb them further. Because disturbing them further means they will become unfavorable towards bhakti. Even if they may have little favorability, that will also be lost. So don't disturb them further. Krishna has said this. And na buddhi bhedam jane. Don't split somebody's intelligence using your logic. So this is niyamagraha, agraha. Even in bhakti, there are various eligibilities. People should be given instruction according to their eligibility. Not that the rule which I like, the limb of bhakti which I like, I will paint the entire world in that particular rule. Not like this. Understand that bhakti is a multi-limbed process. Some devotees perform only one limb nicely. Some devotees perform multiple limbs. We should not preach or speak in such a way that it will cause harm to other limbs of bhakti. One limb of bhakti should not cause harm to another limb of bhakti. So in this way, our prachar should be done. And we should remember that for the age of Kali, all limbs should be supplemented by Hare Krishna Mahamantra Sankirtan or Kirtan. Hare Krishna Kirtan, Hari Nam Kirtan is what completes all other limbs of bhakti in the age of Kali. With this, dear devotees, I sincerely pray to all of you that I may not become a victim of niyamagraha. So thank you very much, dear devotees. Yadatra Skhalitam Kinchit Vidvam Saha Purayantu Tat Yadatra Saushthavam Kinchit Tad Guroreva Menahi. Yadatra Skhalitam Kinchit. If there's any mistake in what I said, Vidvamsah, you are all learned devotees, Purayantu Tat. You please correct any mistakes. Yadatra Saushthavam Kinchit. If there's anything nice in the presentation, please understand Tad Gurore. It belongs only to my Guru Janas, my Diksha Guru, my Shiksha Gurus, all the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, all the God brothers of Srila Prabhupada, all the Vaishnavas in the past, in the present, in the future, including all of you. You are also my Shiksha Gurus, so it belongs to you. May nahi. It doesn't belong to me. Thank you very much, dear devotees. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Granth ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Hari Prabhu, for another wonderful presentation. So enlightening. So we'll go to questions now. Please focus on the class today. If you have a question about previous verses, make sure you saw that class. It might have been answered already.
Yeah, just one thing. It is best to ask questions on topic. And I have seen a tendency that sometimes devotees are asking 2 or 3 questions in a single go. So this takes away time from other devotees. So it is preferable to ask one question. If you genuinely have 2 questions, then it is okay. But it is preferable to ask one question per individual. Thank you.
And to try to make it concise, right?
Yes, true.
Okay, so we'll start with Jai Dwarka Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dana Pranam. Thank you so much for such a nice presentation. In each and every class, I observe that many of the previous misconceptions you are clearing. So it's really enlightening.
I've learned by experience. I made so many mistakes. So now I can teach everyone what not to do. How do you think I got here? By making all the mistakes n number of times. Thank you, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu, please ask.
I had a question, Prabhuji. Generally, as you said that when an individual recognizes that the same principle of niyamagrahah has been applied to him by his seniors, and even now also, if the individual looks that those devotees are there in life, and those devotees are such devotees that they are facilitating also the devotee in bhakti. So if now that devotee, so it becomes very difficult for him to maintain a balance between surrender and discrimination. And if he does not follow them, then it would amount to jada jnani ho gaya, that person has become more learned and you are becoming too much jnani and you are disobeying. So then this kind of thoughts may come into the community and make the practices difficult for the individual. So it becomes very difficult to maintain a balance between surrender and discrimination. So what would you say, Prabhuji, for this?
So first thing is that when we are listening to multiple individuals, when we are taking shiksha from multiple individuals, at some point of time, we are bound to run into some contradictions. And at that point of time, Shastra has given us the freedom that anukulyasya sankalpaha pratikulyasya varjanam. What is favorable for our bhajan honestly, that we should take up, and what is not favorable for our remembrance of Krishna, that can be kept aside. Now the thing is, whatever bhajan we are doing, we don't have to tell anybody. If we stop telling people what rules we are accepting and what rules we are not accepting, the problem will not arise at all. The problem arises when we start telling people that, well, I did not accept this rule by this senior, I accepted this rule by this senior because of XYZ reason. There is absolutely no reason to do that. The one person to whom we should give 100% undivided attention, we should take up their instructions very carefully, is the Diksha Guru, somebody who connects us to Krishna, and the most prominent bhajan guru, the Shiksha Guru, the one prominent Shiksha Guru. These two are of utmost importance in one's spiritual life. Others are for nourishing them. And this Shiksha Guru is not selected by some mechanical process. The Shiksha Guru is selected by us voluntarily. It is a voluntary process whom we accept as a Shiksha Guru. So it's not, Shiksha Guru is not an institutional position. It is something which we have someone who we have selected voluntarily. Others may supplement the teachings of the Diksha and the most prominent Shiksha Guru. And, if something goes against that, then we may silently neglect that. But we don't have to speak about it openly. Because yukti yuktam vachograhyam baladapi shukadapi. Ayoktikam tu nagrahyam apyuktam padmayonina. Yukti yuktam vachograhyam. Whatever is logical, rationally possible, we can accept. Baladapi shukadapi, from a small child also, or even from a parrot. But ayoktikam tu nagrahyam, that which is devoid of logic, that which doesn't make sense to us, which doesn't help us progress, never accept. Apyuktam padmayonina, even if Lord Brahma himself comes and says, this is Vedic tradition. The 4 Kumaras, Lord Brahma told them, get married. 4 Kumaras said, it doesn't, we are Jnana yogis. We are basically on the far extreme end of renunciation. Doesn't make any sense to us. So Jayadwarka Prabhu, what did the 4 Kumaras do?
They didn't obey.
Yeah, didn't obey. So there are some things which we cannot obey. But doesn't mean that, Guru Ravagya immediately. Guru Ravagya means if our Guru, our Diksha Guru, our most prominent Shiksha Guru has given us some compulsory rule, and that we are denying it big time, definitely that falls into the category of Guru Ravagya. Otherwise, some discrimination is definitely required. Otherwise, we'll run into contradictions very soon. So I hope this helps clarify.
Yes, Puji, here just a follow up in this. Many times what also happens that because we are into an organization and institution is there, so many things are to be taken care of by the spiritual master also at the time of giving instructions. So in that scenario, again, a problem arises for the sadhaka, because many times when spiritual master gives instruction, that may not be exactly as per the adhikar of the individual, but because it is required institutionally, it is required for the sake of upkeep of organization, that's why that instruction has come. And if the devotee is not able to follow it, then it becomes a disobedience to the spiritual master. So in this case, what can be done, Prabhuji?
So in this case, what can be done? Because the institution requires that a certain rule should be followed. So that is the institution has some pros, institution has some cons. One of the cons is that you can't really make tailor-made tailor-made rules for everyone. Some rules are general rules. So this is one of the cons of an institution. But the Guru also has to follow that. So, but if the disciple is really having an issue with following that, he can personally consult his Guru, and then the Guru can look into the matter and see, what can be done about it. Because better than losing the devotee is to make some adjustment. So that is what would be recommendable. But therefore, the Hari Bhakti Vilas also says that Guru and disciple should stay with each other for 1 year at least, and then they should see each other's nature. Sometimes these things are not exactly followed in an institution. So therefore, there's some of the cons of performing bhakti in an organized setup. But institution has many pros, many plus points. So it's a trade-off. So that's what I would like to say. If a devotee is not able to follow it, they should consult their Guru and honestly confide, and the Guru can, decide from case to case basis. Right.
Radhika Vallabha
Yes,
Prabhu.
thank you so much, Puji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Radhika Vallabha Prabhu.
Yes, sir.
We're not able to hear you yet.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Barely.
Can you?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for the nice class, bro. I wanted to ask that, we follow the system of chanting 16 rounds, but sometimes devotees say that there are many devotees after initiation, they are not able to maintain the chanting of the 16 rounds. So sometimes I've heard that some devotees say that maybe for Harinam Diksha, because 16 rounds initially they take the vow, but then later they find it difficult to chant. So this, how do we actually see that? Like, is it a standard rule, 16 rounds? Suppose a guru sees that, oh, this person, okay, if he chants 4 rounds or 8 rounds, then he can take Diksha. Is that
So
I think it's related institutional thing.
yeah, it's an institutional thing, and from different institution to institution, it basically varies. Now, in the Gaudiya Math, often it was, initiation was given on 4 rounds. Sometimes in the past, in the Gaudiya Math, initiation was given on 4 rounds. So there is a question and answer with Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, and I would like to point out this. So let me just share this because he's speaking about the Gaudiya Math. So in his book, Shri Krishna, Reality the Beautiful, there is a student in the 11th chapter, a student asks a question. Would Srila Bhaktisiddhant Saraswati Thakura give Harinam initiation to somebody who could only chant 4 rounds daily? So Srila Sridhar Maharaj emphasizes on quality. There was no such consideration. Formally, one had to do some counting, but there was no rigid limitation. So this is the very clear answer that he gives. So institution to institution also it varies, but in Srila Bhaktisiddhant Saraswati Thakur's institution, he dynamically made the adjustments. And he gave the freedom to his disciples to dynamically make adjustments. But that is not the case with ISKCON because ISKCON has one set standard of 16. So obviously, if devotees, some devotees due to some reason, it is recommended that one should definitely not flout the order of the Guru. One should never go against the order of the Guru. If the Guru has told us 16 rounds, we should do minimum 16 rounds, and more is much better. And if in some exceptional situation some devotee is not able to do, then they should definitely consult their Guru and they should take some remedy from the Guru. So that is what is the solution to your query.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dhananjaya Tiwari.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for the wonderful session. I have a loaded question, but I'll try to keep it short. It's related to Shuchi and Muchi, and I'm in 18th month now. Since I've started practicing Krishna consciousness, doing my japas, and Archa Vigraha also after your most recent session few weeks back. My question is around Shuchi Muchi, and you would understand, someone at this level, basic questions which goes in mind that not everyone in family has the same lifestyle that we follow. And when we are doing our japas and someone who's not taken a bath will touch us while doing the pujas, if we are moving within house doing aarti and someone again who has not taken a bath touches us, we get a little disturbed and we ask for forgiveness and we continue our prayers. I'm again trying to keep it short. Bathrooms, in Mumbai is, we don't have a separate toilet bathroom. It's both like we take bath also in the same room and there is toilet on the left side. So in mind, a lot of things runs, when we are doing this, and these are questions, and then again, I said, the list is very long. I'll not share all of them, but it goes in the mind and I just apologize and I continue doing my, prayers and rituals, whatever I'm doing. So how to handle it? If there is a book or your recommendation.
Yeah. So see, as far as Harinam is concerned, as there are no major rules in chanting Harinam. Shuchi and Muchi Harinam can be basically Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said in the Shikshashtra committee said Niyamitah Smaranena Kala. And the Acharyas interpret it as that there are no fixed prescribed rules. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita it says no diksham nacha satkriyam nacha purascharayam manadikshate. So purificatory rituals are not expected. So all these things are said about Harinam, and Harinam doesn't expect this. So doesn't mean that we will deliberately break the rules and chant without taking a bath. So we take a bath, then we begin our japa. And this is for Harinam, nothing hard and fast. When it comes to Shri Vigraha Seva, definitely there are rules because those rules are mentioned in the Shastra itself. Now you said in Mumbai, people take bath in the same room, in the same bathroom, and they evacuate in the same bathroom. So obviously that is there. And if one has a lack of space and it's not possible to ensure cleanliness always, then what can one do? Instead, it is there. Therefore, in that class I quoted a mantra, a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, mantratas tantratas chidram desha kalar havastutah sarvam karoti nishchidram anusankirtanam tava. That there may be faults in mantras, faults in the place in where we are staying, there may be many faults, but sarvam karoti nishchidram anusankirtanam tava. That finally, one can, it's not that one should give up deity worship just because of that. Deity worship should never be given up, especially after it has been taken up by the devotees. So it should never be given up. So that is what, is my answer to your query.
Any book that you would recommend for us to read around this, which will clarify?
Let me share one instruction of Srila Bhaktisiddhant Saraswati Thakura Prabhu. Would you like to read an instruction from Srila Bhaktisiddhant Saraswati Thakura?
Sure.
Okay, so I am sharing a letter from Srila Bhaktisiddhant Saraswati Thakura, and Srila Bhaktisiddhant Saraswati Thakura here was, sent a letter by a devotee who was concerned about the quality of sugar, because in those days sugar was made with animal bones. So
Catalyst,
yeah. So Srila Bhaktisiddhant Saraswati Thakura sent a letter back in 1915, and the name has been removed. So please read the letter, Prabhu.
I have received your letter dated Padmanabha 5. Due to the lack of time, I feared writing an extensive letter, but I can see how the delay prolongs. So I write in short. I was very happy to learn that you have come to the understanding that everything is auspicious when the holy name of Krishna is chanted with perseverance. Do not become slack in your chanting the holy names when material thoughts are coming at the time of chanting. Gradually, as a secondary result of chanting the holy name, such useless thoughts will be naturally removed. You do not have to be occupied with that. The result cannot be there right in the beginning. With the rise of great pleasure in Krishna's name, the allurement of material thoughts will diminish. How would the material thoughts look like without an eager acceptance to the holy name? Foreign sugar or mixed ghee is impure, or native unadulterated sugar or unmixed with ghee is pure. But both pure and impure things are material substances. If one does not offer things with feelings in his heart, the Lord will not accept anything, be it pure or impure. What is required is to perform service without offenses. If one serves Sri Nama, the holy name, with his body, mind, and words, then Sri Nami, the processor of the holy name, will reveal his all auspicious form.
Then he also asks at the end, I hope your worship is going on nicely. So, which means, the spiritual master also inquires about the well-being of the disciple. It's a common Vedic tradition to ask about well-being. So, I hope you are doing good. Your worship is going on nicely. So, in this way, I hope, Prabhu, this letter itself is a good indication in the direction of how to perform things when impurities are unavoidable.
Thank you.
Next we have Dipayan.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam. Thank you very much for today's class. I liked everything. Especially you connected the point of preaching also to niyamagraha. This was a very nice connection. My question was related to that only. You spoke that in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna not to disturb the people who are having the lesser qualification. So in that section, in purport to 3.29, Prabhupada writes over here. I just wanted to ask how you understand this. I'll just read it. Men who are ignorant cannot appreciate activities in Krishna consciousness, and therefore Lord Krishna advises us not to disturb them and simply waste valuable time. But the devotees of the Lord are more kind than the Lord because they understand the purpose of the Lord. Consequently, they undertake all kinds of risks, even to the point of approaching ignorant men to try to engage them in the acts of Krishna consciousness, which are absolutely necessary for the human being. So I just wanted if you can shed light how you see this.
Yeah, okay. So therefore I said that even the Bhakti Yogi will approach a person once. So I very clearly said the Bhakti Yogi will approach once. And somebody may be ignorant, maybe a karmi. We have seen that this person is ignorant, he's attached to, his material desires. Still, we approach a person once and tell them what is Bhakti Yoga, what is Krishna consciousness. We give them a book, we tell them everything. Now, if they say no, we don't persist. When that's what is no, what should not be done. So we should not persistently try to split their intelligence if they are not convinced about it. One of the 10 offenses in chanting Bhagwan's Naam is to instruct a person who has clearly demonstrated faithlessness, who has very clearly demonstrated faithlessness in chanting Krishna's name. So when we are talking to them for the first time, we don't know whether they are faithless in Krishna's name or not. But after talking to them for one time, we come to know whether they are faithful or faithless. And after, if they are faithless, then further instructions can be avoided because that will increase their unfavorability. And they can be given other means of bhakti like prasadam, etc. And in that way, their agyat sukriti can continue. But we can't force them to come to the path of bhakti. So Srila Bhaktisiddhant Saraswati Thakura used to say, if there is a kacha mango, unripe mango, there are two ways of ripening it. One way is pluck it from the tree and beat it using a stick. So, Dipayan Prabhu, is that a good way to
Yes,
ripen?
Prabhu. No.
So, how should a kacha mango be ripened, Dipayan Prabhu?
Natural process. Leave it.
That's the answer I'm expecting. So, some kacha mango should be left as it is because it takes time to come to the path of bhakti. I'm not saying this without praman. I will show you another
Yes.
beautiful praman from Bhakti Sandarbh. So in the very beginning of Bhakti Sandarbh, Srila Jiva Goswami quotes some verses from the Puranas. So I will show these verses from the Puranas. He quotes from Brahma Vaivarta Puran some verses. So I am sharing my screen and you can have a look. Yeah. So in the beginning of Bhakti Sandarbha, he says that Brahma Vaivarta, in the Brahma Vaivarta Puran, it is said, Yavat papaistu malinam hridayam, as long as the heart is, it is stained by sinful activities, tavat, till that time, na shastreste buddhi syat, one cannot develop faith in the Shastra, sat buddhi, sat guru tatha, and faith in the Guru. Then how can then one become a devotee? Srila Jiva Goswami says, Aneka janma janita, many lifetimes of, gathering punya rashi, gathering piety, devotional piety. Punya here means devotional punya. Phalam mahat. Then the great result comes in one particular life. What is the great result? Sat Sangha. One gets association of devotees, one becomes a devotee. Shastra Shravanad. One listens to the Shastra. Evam Premadi Jayate. Then one attains the higher stages of bhakti, such as Prem, etc. So, this is what our acharyas also said. I have not said anything different from that. One time you should try with everybody. And then you understand there is a kacha mango. It will take time. So don't try to beat the kacha mango with a stick. All right?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Okay. Who is next? Prabhu, you are mute.
Sorry. Next we have Omkar Prabhu.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dhanavad Pranam. Prabhuji, I had this question regarding the niyama, following the rules. Like we mentioned, like in Bhakti-rasamrita, it is said that Smriti, Shruti, Puranadi. So in the Shrutis, there is a niyam like Satyam Vada, Dharmam Chara. So I'll connect it to my point. The point what I want to say is I was having a discussion with some of my devotee friend. So it's a I'll not mention the names, but a general discussion. So the point was he was using some unfair means to pass his exams. Not so much, you can say, but little unfair means. So this has caused a little agitation to him because in a way devotee is expected to always be like a gentleman. But the point is the world today is like not all others are going to follow the same thing. And at the same time, for a devotee, he has some additional responsibilities. He has his seva, his bhajan. So it's really difficult for a devotee to honestly give so much time to a material thing, and at the same time where all the people are anyways going to do some cheating of some sort. So in such cases, there is a not a good feeling in the heart of a devotee. So would you please explain it?
The thing is, first thing is, it is questionable as to why somebody wants to go in a field where there is definitely going to be cheating. So first thing is, that itself is a little questionable. And a devotee should ideally try to select a profession or some work in which such things will not arise. Speaking lies. Speaking lies is also allowed if you are a Vaishya by nature. You have to speak some lies. But then how much are we going to do it? If this devotee is of a Brahminical nature, how much is he going to do it? That he has to check for himself. In Shastras also, different Shastras are on different levels. Not all Shastras are on the same level. Satyam vada dharmam chara. Speak the truth. Our acharyas say something in the commentaries. Arthashastrat dharmashastrasya balavatvam uchyate. Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan in the commentary to Bhagavad Gita 2.11. Compared to Arthashastra, economics, Dharma Shastra is more stronger. Instructions of Dharma Shastra are more stronger. But even compared to instructions of Dharma Shastra, the instructions of Bhakti Shastra are strongest. So if this devotee has no other option and this is the only line of work that he has to do, and in order to save his bhakti, if this is the only work that he can do, then he may have no choice but to indulge in some cheating. But if he is a genuine case and he's not doing it out of habit, so then there is a very nice verse in the Bhakti Sandarbha which Sri Jiva Goswami quotes, and this verse should not be used in order to justify sinful activities committed in the name of bhakti. So there is a verse, I'll try to recollect it. Madartham yat kritam papam api punyaya smaryate. That whatever Krishna's, there is a statement for Krishna that whatever pious activities are done, whatever sinful activities are done, but for me, they actually become pious activities. And whatever so-called pious activities are done, but without reference to me, they become actually sinful activities. So something like that. Man nimittam kritam papam. I will show you in Bhakti Sandarbha. Let me point out the verse from Bhakti Sandarbha because it's important to see what exact verse it is. So I'm sharing my screen. This is from Bhakti Sandarbha. And this verse should not be misused. So disclaimer, this verse should not be misused. Man nimittam kritam papam. Any sinful activity or any any activity not recommended in Shastra, but it is done for exclusively for pleasing Krishna, not for one's own sense gratification. Api kshemaya kalpate. Some versions have api punyaya kalpate. It becomes pious activity. Man anadritya dharmopi papam syat. And neglecting me, so-called activities of dharma also gradually become sinful. Mat prabhavata, by my influence. So this devotee has to do some self-introspection and see what is his case. Right?
Prabhuji, the context was regarding he was pursuing education, so he is basically in the field education. So it's not going to be like lifelong thing. So it was the context, and there was a second verse. There's a verse in Bhagavatam, Tyaktva Swadarnam Charanambujam Hare.
Yeah.
So, so the verse, what it means to say is, even sometimes when a devotee gives up his occupational, although it's regarding to varnashram, but it can relate to the morality also. But still, and even he fails in performing devotional service, there is no loss. So could you please connect this verse to this point which you were
The verse just says that if somebody gives up his occupational duties and engages one-pointed in bhakti, still if the devotee is not successful in his bhakti, there is no loss for the devotee. On the other hand, a person who perfectly carries out their occupational duties without bhakti does not gain anything. That is what the verse says. The verse does not say that one who gives up his occupational duties and engages in forbidden activities. So I will not extend the scope of the verse beyond what is given there. So what is given in Bhakti Sandarbha is man nimittam kritam papam. That verse I quoted to you. But the devotee has to be very careful, is walking on a double-edged sword. So
It should not be become one swabhava.
yeah, it should not be done out of, it should not be done tastefully. That, one is taking rasa in it. One should not do it in that fashion. So, and it's very ironic that in a field like education, somebody has to speak lies and cheat. Traditionally, education should teach the
Yes.
exact opposite of that. Sa vidyaya vimukte. Vidya is that which liberates. And what sort of vidya have we fallen into that we are performing the exact opposite of vidya? So Bhaktivinode Thakur used to say, Jada vidya jata mayar vaibhav tumar bhajane badha अनित्य संसारे जनमिया मोह जीव के कराये गाधा. Jada Vidya, this so-called material education, Maya or Vaibhav, is the brilliance of Maya. Tomar bhajane badha. Ultimately, it becomes an obstacle in your bhajan. Anitya samsare moha janamiya. It creates false attachment to this material world, and jiva ke karaye gadha, makes a donkey out of the living entity. So this is what Srila Bhaktivinode Thakur said. One should remember, these are precious instructions by our previous acharyas.
Yes, true. But unfortunately, today's educational
Unfortunately,
system.
it's compromise day. Unfortunately, it's the 21st century, the century where we compromise everything. Isn't it so, Prabhu?
Yes,
Or do we still have an option? If we still have an option, the serious devotee will check out the options.
Yes, true. Thank you, bro. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Next we have Sandeep Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you so much for the presentation today. Prabhu, I have seen that some devotees in our society, like in to seeing our Guru Maharaj. Sometime that one incident I remember that Guru Maharaj went to America or somewhere. So there, in one devotee's house, he denied the prasadam as this pizza, and he accepted the puri and sabji. Then some devotee finding it as a rule, and they are also practicing as a rule that Maharaj is not eating pizza, will also not eat pizza. So this is also a kind of niyamagraha or something.
The thing is, if Shastra says something, we should accept it as it is. And if Shastra doesn't say anything, we should not add our rules. Now, I know of this incident where our Guru Maharaj, my Guru Maharaj as well as your Guru Maharaj, the same. He went to the United States. He was offered pizza. He took a bite and he did not like it. So he said, please get me something according to my taste. So
yes,
they prepared some roti and sabji for him, and then he liked it. Now I will also highlight an incident from the life of one of my Shiksha Gurus, Srila Gaur Govind Maharaj. When he went to France, he was offered pizza. So he ate pizza at that point of time. And he said, it's very nice actually. So can you make more tomorrow? So next day they bought more pizza for him. So one of them is my Diksha Guru. One of them is my Shiksha Guru. So what should I do? So I have to understand that these are individual preferences. They cannot be, whole scale applied on the entire society. So some devotees may take inspiration from that, and then they may think that, well, Guru Maharaj said that no pizza, so I will also do no pizza. So they can keep their individual Shraddha to their own level. But if they start preaching about it and they make a principle out of it, then it will become niyamagrahah. So that is what will happen. So we should understand that there is no such rule in Shastra that pizza should not be consumed. But attachment to pizza should not be there. This is the rule in Shastra. So what is the rule in attachment to pizza should not be there. So that attachment should not be there to any food item. So that is what is the rule in Shastra. As soon as one becomes attached, so Jivva Vegam comes up and says, well, hello, you are breaking a rule here. And don't you want to preach to the entire world? Sarvam api imam prithvim sa shishya. Yes, yes, I want to preach. So please give up attachment to food items. So that is what is the rule. Some food items are there which are clearly forbidden in Shastras, such as mushrooms are forbidden, onions are forbidden, garlic is forbidden. Devotees should consciously try to avoid these items. All right, Prabhu?
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Dandavat.
No.
Next, we have Mandri Devi Mataji.
Hare Krishna, my pranam. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for your wisdom. My question is, sometimes the disagreement between devotees about niyama, what applies, is whether something is a principle or a detail. Could you kindly define how to understand what's a principle and what's a detail?
Very nice. So what is a compulsory injunction and what is a additional detail or additional recommendation? Is that the query?
Yes.
Okay. So compulsory injunctions are those which are often specified using vidhiling. So you have understanding of Sanskrit, Mataji, so you know what is vidhiling. But for those who don't know what is vidhiling, in Sanskrit grammar there are 10 tenses and moods. So one of the mood is vidhiling. Vidhiling is called as imperative or injunction basically. So there is a verse regarding that in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. I will point out this verse in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and I will share my screen. Bhavet kriya vidhiling se iha kai kartavya avashya nyatha pratyavai. Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila 4.35. Bhavet, the verbal form bhavet, is kriya, is a verb, is vidhiling. It is of that injunction nature, must do. Say iha kai. What it says, kartavya avashya, it should be definitely done. Anyatha, otherwise, pratyavai, there will be negative result. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Here, the use of the verb bhavet, which is in imperative mode, vidhiling, tells us that this certainly must be done. Non-compliance would be abandonment of duty. So wherever, Mataji, mainly you find vidhiling, bhavet, kriyet, japet. So once you find these vidhilings, these are what are to be understood as compulsions. And sometimes they are vidhilings, there are compulsory rules given, but acharyas relax it. And then if the acharyas relax some vidhi, then it is okay, you can relax that. But otherwise, whatever is mentioned in our Bhakti Shastra, in vidhiling, in imperative mode, is to be accepted as a rule, and whatever supplements that is to be accepted as a recommendation. So I hope this clarifies.
May I have a follow-up question on that?
Sure.
So sometimes devotees don't have access to so much Shastra as yoga itself, and we rely mainly on Srila Prabhupada's books, and much of the presentation is in English, and many of Srila Prabhupada's instructions were not in Sanskrit. So how can we clarify there what's a detail and what's a principle?
All right. So then what we can do is, if there is an instruction which is coming from Guru or which is coming from Srila Prabhupada, then we can consult a devotee who has read the Shastra, who's actually Bhakti Shastri or has read the Shastra, Bhakti Vaibhav or something like that. And we can ask them to trace the instruction where it originates in Shastra. And we should see where the instruction originates And if the instruction originates in a certain place where it is made compulsory, then it should be accepted. So some research is required. Otherwise, without research, we cannot backtrace the instruction. We cannot backtrace the seriousness of the instruction. And without backtracing the seriousness of the instruction, then we will have to use our own mind to determine whether it is compulsory or not. So that will not be recommended. So we need to do what is known in engineering as reverse engineering. Some reverse engineering is required, some backtracing is required to see what was the original intention of the Acharya who first specified that particular statement. So once that is clarified, and it takes some research, but it is very good learning experience. I have been doing that for many years. Suddenly a devotee comes and says, Prabhu, unless you do this, you cannot attain perfection. Like in the previous talk I was saying, I heard one devotee saying, unless you finish your rounds by 7 a.m., you cannot go back to Godhead. So my mind is saying, when Hari Bhakti Vilas was written, AM and PM was not there. So how is this devotee determining this rule? So then just to put a point from my side, I asked this devotee a question. Prabhu, what time would Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wake up in the morning? So, Manjari Mataji, I ask you the same question. What time would Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wake up in the morning?
Well, probably not according to time, but the sunrise compared to.
So, approximately in AM, give an approximate time.
Like three something, three according to the, yeah.
Okay. So this devotee also said something like that. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to wake up at 3 o'clock, in the morning. So then I showed him a bhajan from Srila Bhaktisiddhant Thakur. So this is Arunodaya Kirtan. So the first line says, Udilo Aruna Purab Bhage Dvijamani Gaura Amani Jage. Udilo Aruna, when the sun had started rising. So Mataji, is that 3:30 or 6:30?
Yeah, that's why I mentioned sunrise, but then we have the Ashtakaliya Smaranam when they give exact timings of the phases and they put 3 something. I don't know what's the origin of that.
Right. So that is for when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was in Navadvip, basically this is his Kirtan Lila. So there used to be late night Kirtans. Late night means they used to go very late night at Shiva's Pandit's home. So when they used to go late night, then next morning, after the sunrise, everybody would wake up. So then I made this point to the devotee that you see, sometimes even in the case of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it's not that all rules and regulations are followed to the word of the law. And there was no AM and PM at that time. So devotees were there was a little flexibility in the devotees' behavior at that point of time. But nowadays that flexibility is not to be found so much. So we have really made it very rigid in some places, which is good from some points of view, but it has its cons. So that is what I would like to say.
Thank you very much. Very helpful. Thank you.
Next we have Vinod Kovida Prabhu.
Yeah, you are muted, Vinod Kovida Prabhu. Please unmute. Yeah. You wanted to ask something?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the class, Prabhu. I wanted to ask about, you were mentioning about adhikar, knowing one's adhikar, and then you also mentioned about just one's inclination in service, and some devotees might be interested in different sorts of services. And sometimes seems like with the institutional overlay of things, that a lot of that can kind of get lost. Devotees can have trouble knowing what is their adhikar, and sometimes their inclination is kind of just, not really, it's more like, okay, just do the service that's needed. And one's inclination is not, it's kind of seen, oh, maybe later on. So could you speak to this a little bit more, how one can understand those two things particularly?
The thing is, there is a, in an institution also, sometimes because the way in which an institution functions, people's natural tendencies are sometimes suppressed. And therefore, it is expected from the leaders that the leaders should be such that they should recognize the natural talent of a person and they should engage that person in that particular way. Srila Bhaktisiddhant Saraswati Thakura, he wrote an article called as Putana, in which he spoke very heavily about institutionalized religion. Each and every sentence of that article is a revelation in itself. And in that article, he has used a very specific term, a phrase he has used, that genuine guidance comes from the unconventional teacher. He has used this term, unconventional teacher. This is the term that he has used in the article. So if teachers always keep on following conventions, then it will always be the institutional scenario. In order to ensure that devotees are dynamically and happily engaged, you need an unconventional teacher of religion. And therefore, Srila Bhaktisiddhant Saraswati Thakur highlighted that. So one thing, Prabhu, you can do is you can read that article, and in that article, you can try to find this article on Putana and organized religion. That article is called Organized Religion, where he speaks about Putana and organized religion. In that article, he says that in the hands of the unconventional teacher, no institution can become degraded into a lifeless arrangement. He says this. In that article, there is a sentence. In the hands of the unconventional teacher of religiosity, no mechanical arrangement can become degraded. Even though it's a mechanical arrangement, it doesn't become degraded, but it requires that unconventional teacher of philosophy. And therefore, there is when I read that, it reminded me of a very nice verse in Sanskrit. So this is in Devanagari, but I will also show you the Roman. Amantram aksharam nasti moolam anaushadham ayogyah purusho nasti yojakastatra durlabhah. So here is the Devanagari. Amantram aksharam nasti moolam anaushadham ayogyah purusho nasti yojakastatra durlabhah. Amantram aksharam nasti. There is no syllable which cannot be turned into a mantra. Every syllable is actually a mantra. Nasti moolam anaushadham. There is no root of a vegetation which cannot be turned into a medicine. Every root can be turned into a medicine. Ayogyah purusho nasti. Similarly, there is no ineligible person. But yojakas tatra durlabha. It's very difficult to find a person who can properly engage all these entities in their proper tasks. So this is it's very difficult to find the unconventional teacher of bona fide religion. Very difficult. If you find such a person ever in your lifetime, who knows how to dynamically apply the rules and where to not apply the rules, who has studied the 360 degree of Shastra and who knows which rule is to be accepted, which should not be accepted, which is useful for bhakti, which is not useful for bhakti, and who can customize it for you, tailor-made, that person is Guru. That person is actually a person who should be accepted as a Guru, because that person can give us tailor-made guidance and unconventional guidance for progressing in our path of bhajan. So I hope this gives you some relief to your query, Prabhu.
Yes, thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you.
We're getting pretty close to 9:30 a.m. here. We got like 2 minutes left.
Yeah, sure, Prabhu. So you decide.
Fire around questions real quick with Satvik Sharma, Nilachala Chandrika, Mataji.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Prabhu, you mentioned Srimad Bhagavatam 11th canto, and in that verse 28, Yadrichya, and Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj has translated here somehow or other by good fortune.
Yeah.
So my question is, when you mentioned different types of yoga and the adhikars for respective yogas, can someone from karma yoga go to the adhikara bhakti yoga, or can someone from the adhikara jnana yoga go to bhakti yoga?
Yeah, it can definitely happen. Why can it not happen? That praman is already there in Shastra for that. Can somebody go from Karma Yoga to Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga to Bhakti Yoga, or Jnana Yoga to Bhakti Yoga? Atma Ramascha Munaya, Nirgrantha Apyurukrame, Kurvantya Haitukim Bhaktim, Itham Bhuta Guno Hari. So then there is a very clear verse that even Atma Rams who are liberated, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave many explanations. So I'll very quickly point out the verse number. I'll not get into the detail. It's 1.7.10 Srimad Bhagavatam. Atma Ramascha Munayo Nirgrantha Apyurukrame Kurvanti Ahaitu Bhaktim Itham Bhuta Guno. So all different varieties of Atma Rams, the impersonalists who take pleasure in the self. And they also desire to render unalloyed devotional service, but they should come in contact with a devotee. Once they come in contact with a devotee, yadrichaya, by good fortune, then there is a possibility that it may happen. All right.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
Next we have our last question from Nilachala Chandrika Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much for a nice class. We have so many questions, but I'll just get one. We see in some Vaishnava Sampradayas, they follow the rules and regulations, but they don't know they don't have any understanding behind it, because the children, they see that the parents are following, but the children don't have any taste in it, and they just do it for the sake of it. So is that also niyamagraha? I mean, because the parents pushing them to do favorable devotion to the Lord, like, offering and to the Lord and all that, but it's not helping the children. They just, away from it because they don't understand the knowledge behind it. So is that niyamagraha also?
Yeah, obviously telling somebody the rules without telling them what is the intention behind the rules will obviously create a disconnect from the rule. There's an intention with which the rule was. The rule was not written to give trouble to somebody. That was not the purpose behind writing the rule. The purpose of the limb of bhakti, the purpose of the rule was to facilitate some seva. Now the parents should either, have somebody who can talk to the child and who can explain to them, or the child should be given some freedom to voluntarily select a shiksha guru. That freedom should be given by the parents. One thing from Srila Prabhupada's own life I want to recount very quickly. In his youth, Srila Prabhupada became disenchanted with most of the sadhus, including the Vaishnava ones. And he said, these people, they follow all the rules and it's good, they worship the deity and so on and so forth. But I don't see any depth in their character. That is what Srila Prabhupada observed. And Srila Prabhupada, frankly speaking, for a few years, he became disenchanted with many of these sadhus until he met the unconventional teacher of true religiosity. So that is what every child requires. They require that person who can revolutionize their spiritual life. And by not letting them meet such people, we may be stunting their growth. So, parents should try not to do that. I'm sure you're not doing that, but parents should make active efforts to ensure that children are meeting many Vaishnavas and they take shiksha from a good Vaishnava whom they have shraddha in, they have faith in, right?
But they are, no, it's not me, it's it's my brother, but the children are small and they are very afraid that if they go and look for unconventional gurus, they might land up in some other sampradaya.
All children should never be forced. There was one child whose mother gave him only 1 or 2 drops of milk, and then the child developed some taste and spontaneously started asking for more. So that is what is preferable with small children. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
I'll invite all the devotees to unmute and give a big thank you to Hari Prabhu.
Hari Bol. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Hari
Hari
Bol.
Bhakti
Thank you very
Vilasa.
Srila
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna.
Hari
Hari Bol.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Hari Pārṣada Prabhu.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. His Grace Hari Pārṣada Prabhu Ji.
Jai
Ki
Srila
jai.
Prabhupada. Jai. Anant Koti Vaishnava. Okay, Prabhu, I'll log off, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Take care.
Hare